rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. You know, I wasn't sure what the background was going to look like. I was sitting there putting up the background, and right at the time that I was looking to kind of see what the background was really going to look like in comparison to me in the shirt, bam, my auto start mechanism code went ahead and took right off. So I had no idea what I was going to look like up against the background, especially because it's green. By the way, background is provided by the very, very awesome, very venerable, very wise Buddy Weiser. Okay. So there you go. It's Whiskey Wednesday. What am I going to say? Anyway. Oh, my goodness. So I guess garbage is now like the new common term. I mean, first it was the Puerto Ricans being the Puerto Rico island being garbage, not the people, but the island by some moronic, shock comedian, whatever out there. And now we have, we apparently have, now the deplorables are garbage. Yeah. So, yeah, whatever. Anyway, all right. Well, let's go ahead and get this thing started. Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance is going to be performed by the very one, the Buddy Weiser. So if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one. And if not, place your hand over your heart. And let's follow along with Buddy Weiser in his recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I hereby pledge my allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which she stands, one nation under one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all her citizens. So help me God.
All right, and thank you, Buddy, for providing that wonderful rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance to the program. If you would like to hear your version of the Pledge of Allegiance, all you have to do is record yourself reciting the pledge in your style, and then, of course, take that audio file, attach it to an email, and then email that, send in the little to box, send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. All right. And tonight, of course, is...
Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
It's Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And here we have tonight's drink, the Knob Creek Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, aged 9 years. I picked this bottle up this past weekend. So there we go. And, by the way, Mrs. Whiskey had to help me. She had to help me get the wax off the top here. I went and popped there's a tab, and I wasn't paying attention, and I popped the tab off without taking the strip with it. And so, yeah, it was just, anyway. All right. And tonight's glass, of course, is the True Grit Roots Network, because that's just the way I roll. And there it is. There's the stones. You can see them in the bottom right there. And yes, it does take stones to drink with Rick, at least according to 3 Chevy anyway. Boy, that's some good stuff. Speaking of True Grit Roots Network and TGRN, they are a headliner promo tonight. TGRN.net, True Grit Roots Network, is what TGRN stands for. And TGRN.net is where you can find us on the web. you can listen to our 24/7, 365 Blues channel, TGRN Blues, right now. Got some new stuff coming in the next 3 to 6 months. So I'm telling you, you got to pay attention here. I'll tell you about it. I'll tell you about it when it comes time. But TGRN.net is where you can find us. You can listen right through the browser directly, or if you'd like to, you can download our app, or if you already have one of the Live 365, Odyssey, that's AUDACY, or iHeartRadio apps, you can find us in their catalog of digital radio stations as well. I want to tell you about one of our shows that we have, headlined, of course, and hosted and produced by none other than the multi-award winner Jonathan Oogie Richards and his daughter Amber Burhill. That is Mighty Mouth Blues. It's exclusively at TGRN, True Grit Roots Network. It airs on Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Central Time, with an encore presentation on Saturdays at 8 p.m. Central Time as well. Mighty Mouth Blues brings the hottest mix of new blues and old school hits, along with interviews with artists and blues news makers shaping the today's blues from all parts of the world. Mighty Mouth Blues, once again, airs Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Time with an encore presentation Saturday at 8 p.m. Central Time as well. That is all exclusively on TGRN. That's True Grit Roots Network with TGRN Blues, based out of Austin, Texas. All righty. Uh-oh. Ooh, was somebody getting snow? Coco DeWhiskey is getting snow right now. Now, she actually lives in Wyoming, if I remember correctly. Which, speaking of which, great little pet of the week from her coming up. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes. I was going to talk about the garbage. Anybody feel like a garbage man? Anybody want to take me out? My wife is a garbage woman. She wants to take me out in more ways than one. Some days she wants to take me out to dinner, and other days she just wants to take me out, as in out of the picture. Yeah, it's just, that's what marriage is all about, folks. That's the way it is. Anyway, I digress. I'm having a lot of fun because she and I have been kind of going back and forth here recently. And yeah, speaking of her, there she just walked in. But anyway, she and I have been going back and forth recently about a whole bunch of different stuff. So it's just, it's fun being married. And actually, when you get to a certain point, like I tell everybody, whenever you are married with somebody, don't pick the person that, you know, you're going to love and, you know, you hang out with and you just enjoy being around. No, find the one person
you want to irritate
that you want to irritate for the rest of your life. And that's who you marry. I'm telling you, because otherwise, I mean, marriage is not that much fun after a little while. So you got to be able to irritate them. That's what I do. No, I love my wife dearly. She takes care of this guy. Let me tell you, this guy right here, 2 thumbs right here, this guy. All right. Let me go ahead and get on with it, because obviously my marriage is not something that I definitely wanted to talk about right now. Okay, so speaking of being married and, you know, total disaster area and garbage, Kamala Harris had her final pitch. Well, it might not be the final pitch, but it definitely felt like it because, you know, she had it on the Washington Ellipse where Donald Trump gave his January 6th speech, and I think they were attempting to try and make, try and make it this big, huge event. And in actuality, it really didn't do very well because, of course, Kamala Harris made the speech about, who is it? Well, Donald Trump. And she lied about Donald Trump. So anyway, yeah. And anyway, the Daily Signal has done a good job for us. to go ahead and put this all together for us here. So, fact-checking Kamala Harris's ellipse speech. So the first thing that she did, of course, is she talked about January 6th being the armed mob. The armed mob. Yeah, it was armed. It was so armed. I mean, let's not even mind the fact that the DC area is a gun-free zone. Okay. Anyway, apparently there were only a couple people. I think prosecutors charged, according to the piece here, prosecutors charged at least 3 protesters with having firearms on Capitol grounds or stashed nearby, meaning not necessarily inside the Capitol. So, again, it was only like 1 or 2. It wasn't that big of a deal. So anyway, yeah. But why do they keep going back to January 6th? I don't even understand it. It was a mostly peaceful protest. And it was a protest, honestly. It was a protest up until the point that the Capitol Police decided to fire rubber bullets and tear gas into the peaceful crowd. I mean, seriously. Not to mention all of the agent provocateurs, which the FBI, who, by the way, is completely compromised based on the information that is coming out of the House Judiciary Committee and stuff. But anyway, they had their agent provocateurs planted in the crowd, and had plants, apparently, according to last night's article, had plants within the Trump organization the minute that he declared that he was going to run back in 2015. But anyway, I digress. Back to the Daily Signals piece here. Of course, she said abortion lies because, let's just face it, that's all she really has to run on. But anyway, she repeated 3 lies about Trump's agenda: that he would ban abortion nationwide. He's never said that. And he actually said that he would veto any bill that would come across to ban abortion. Then he would restrict access to birth control. Yep, never said that. And also put IVF treatments at risk. He's actually talked about expanding IVF and making the government pay for it. I don't know where she's getting it from. Oh, wait a minute. I know where she's getting it from. She said it. She said she's getting it from Project 2025, which Project 2025 is not Trump's platform, has no affiliation to either a political party or figure, and also, by the way, is just a think tank piece that has been coming out every single presidential election cycle since the 1980s. I don't think that's really going to be, and keep in mind, too, that the Project 2025 is named Project 2025 because it is a wish list from a conservative think tank organization that essentially is like, hey, we really wish you would do this, but that doesn't mean that it is. Agenda 47 is Trump's platform. Period. End of story. That's it. All right. Now, we also have the whole price gauging. It's price gouging lie. All right. She talked about the priority as a nation 4 years ago was to end the pandemic and rescue the economy. Now our biggest challenge is to lower costs. First of all, you didn't rescue the economy. You tanked the economy. Second of all, you're the one, and you alone, by the way, because she was not a, but the deciding vote to pass the the incorrectly named Inflation Reduction Act, plus a couple of other pieces of legislation, and made it to where our inflation rate rose up to 9.1%, 18 months after they came into office. Now, the thing that the Democrats don't seem to understand about inflation is that the inflationary number that you see every day, like right now, it's hovering, I think, somewhere around 2.4, 2.5, something like that. that isn't what's impacting us. That just means that they have severely slowed down the rate of inflation. Okay. The Federal Reserve's target is 2%. We're still 0.5 roughly above that. And under Trump's 4 years, we were actually under that 2% rise. And for those of you that really don't seem to understand what inflation is, inflation basically cuts back how much your dollar is worth. That's simply all it is. Okay. So anyway, yeah. She apparently is also, by the way, not considering inflation her top priority, since her speech largely focused on Trump, abortion, and a few other issues. So she will not accept that she caused the inflationary cycle that we have going on right now. So anyway, she's just not going to admit to it. She also talked about immigration, and she accuses Trump of cynically using immigration as a campaign issue rather than attempting to solve the problem. Actually, that's not the case. Kamala, he knows how to solve the problem. He's told you how to solve the problem. You're the one that's not solving the problem because you actually don't believe that illegal immigration or illegal aliens should be a criminal offense. You said that back in 2019. You campaigned on that back in 2019. So, yeah. Immigration. Mm-hmm. Sure. He is... She made a comment. She's like, this is part of her speech. Politicians have got to stop touting immigration as an issue to scare up votes in an election. I will work with Democrats and Republicans to sign into law the border security bill that Donald Trump killed. That wasn't a border security bill, sweetheart. There was a lot more to that, and it had nothing to do with border security. Border security is we lock it down, nobody crosses. That's border security. Border security is we lock it down and we only allow certain people through when we desire it. That's border security. Border security bill that you're talking about, as far as the border security is concerned, is just, we're going to let 5,000 people a day cross before we even do anything. How are you going to count 5,000 people? We don't have like sensors all across the border. Yeah. And not to mention the fact that border security bill had more money for Ukraine, more money for all kinds of other, again, it's called pork. That's what these people do, is they add pork into bills, hoping that, you're going to follow the Nancy Pelosi way of pass it. We got to pass the bill in order to find out what's in it. Process. Yeah. HR 2, which is still sitting in the Democrats' desk in the Senate, because I'm not sure if they've like round circular filed it yet, meaning trash can, I don't know if they've gotten rid of it completely or if it's just tucked away in some dark corner of Chucky Schumer's desk. But regardless, HR 2 was the border security bill. That was the one that was really supposed to be it. And Bonnie is correct. Bonnie says we need standalone bills, period. Well, like I've told you on this program, if I ever became president, I would basically clearly state to the Congress, if you send me a bill that takes me more than 15 minutes to read and understand exactly what you are doing it, I will not sign it. That's if I were the president. Also, too, the other thing I would do is just make sure that, hey, you guys need to understand that, I'm here as your check and your balance. So anything that you send me that isn't part of the Constitution and falls under the 10th Amendment, sue me, because I'm not signing it. My only hope is that if I ever were to become president, that I wouldn't have a veto-proof majority. Anyway. All right. Let's continue on. People who disagree are not the enemy. Well, she says, I pledge to listen to experts. Oh, really? You want to listen to experts. How about those experts that are telling you that biological function is what makes gender? That if you're a boy, you're a boy. If you're a girl, you're a girl. I mean, that's just the way things work. How about those who say that, you know, your COVID shot, and I'm probably going to get banned on YouTube for this bullshit, but your COVID shot did nothing to stop the spread of COVID, to stop acquiring COVID, so on and so forth. How about those experts that tell you that men are physically stronger than women and should not be in women's sports? I don't know. But anyway, I digress. She continues on. I plan to listen to the experts, to those who will be impacted by the decisions I make, and to people who disagree with me. Unlike Donald Trump, I don't believe people who disagree with me are the enemy. Bullshit. And he wants to put them in jail. I'll give them a seat at my table. Folks, there's 92% of her office staff that got turned over in the last 3 years that would tell you that that is a bunch of shit. Folks, yeah, she's not going to, she says that she's going to be a president for all Americans. Oh, except for all those garbage individuals that are out there. Yeah, right. And to always put country above party and self. Really? You're going to put country above party and self when you're trying to destroy the Constitution right now? Yeah. And that you're looking to censor speech, that your buddy, who's your running mate, is saying that the First Amendment doesn't include anything for hate speech. Yeah, well, I don't see that in the Constitution, lady. So, guess what? Yeah, anyway. All right. Moving on. And, of course, she continues. There's just a lot. If you want to go and take a look at this, there's a lot of arguments that they put in this, but I'm just telling you right now that those were the things, those were the key topics that she needed to fact check against. And yeah, so anyway, she apparently finally opened up. At first, the Harris didn't respond to Biden's garbage remark. And speaking of which, I don't have it in here, but the White House changed the transcript. And by the way, that transcript is part of the presidential records. And because that's part of the presidential records, the House Oversight Committee, I think, a couple of House members, has sent a letter over to the White House saying, yeah, you guys might have just violated the law, the Presidential Records Act. So, oh, I'm telling you, folks, this is going to be highly, highly interesting over time here. Oop, let me get a drink. All right. Well, Harris, of course, finally had to respond to the comments. Let's take a listen and see exactly what she said.
In front of 100,000 people to talk about what's at stake in this election and to point out that the American people have a real choice and a very important decision to make in 6 days. And it is about who will not only lead the country but occupy the White House, where critical decisions are made that include how we think about who we are as a nation and whether we are going to be a nation of people who attempt to unify and break through this era of divisiveness, or are we going to be a nation of people who has the president stewing in the Oval Office over his enemies list? And I think that the turnout last night and the kind of feedback that we are receiving is a strong indication that the American people actually want a leader who is going to bring us together. And that's the type of leader I intend to be.
Have you spoken to President Biden?
Yeah. Okay. Now there's some other questions here, but first, I just want to say that, yeah, she talks about divisiveness. Let's be real clear about divisiveness. Real clear about divisiveness. I seem to recall a president who was supposed to be the, shall we say, the community organizer, the first black president of America, that he was going to be the uniting force because he knew how to bring people together, who also called out the bitter clingers to their guns and their Bibles. Anybody remember that statement? Yeah, I do. Yeah, that guy. I'm telling you, he started the divisiveness, because then following him, we had the wonderful woman who had spent time in the White House as the first lady in the office, and she said, well, you know, all of those people who are Donald Trump supporters are a basket of deplorables. Yeah. Oh, and don't forget, you know, Barack Obama's wife, Michelle, where Michelle said that she wasn't proud of America until her husband was elected. Yeah. And then, of course, we also remember, the extreme MAGA Republicans, the Nazis, the totalitarians of the extreme MAGA Republicans. Yeah, do you remember that speech up in front of Independence Hall, done by the none other than senile old Joe Biden? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that has, and of course your rhetoric, as well as Tim Walz's rhetoric, talking about how Trump is a Nazi and Hitler and comparing him to, you know, he loves dictators, even though he never said that he's Putin's puppet, that he's all these different things. Yeah. Oh yeah. You're really going to unite the country in all of this. Yeah, I don't think so. Well, let's finish, or try to finish what she has said.
His comment last night about garbage.
Listen, I think that, first of all, he clarified his comments, but let me be clear. I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for. You heard my speech last night and continuously throughout my career. I believe that the work that I do is about representing all the people, whether they support me or not.
Oh, yeah. Whether they support you or not, sweetheart. Yeah. How about all those black men that you kept in jail on what would essentially be minor marijuana offenses for the most part? You kept them in jail longer than is necessary, and now you want to supposedly legalize marijuana. Oh, don't even forget. Don't forget the fact that you wouldn't even prosecute a child molestation case that was dealing with the church, that it was already packaged, set, and ready for you to take it up the minute you got elected as the Attorney General, and you passed on it. Yeah. You're going to be the president for all Americans. Yeah, sweetheart, I don't think so. Okay? I don't think so. So, what a complete and utter
half a dozen
mess.
Days ago now, President Biden is
So, what a mess. Well, guess what? That whole garbage idea, the Communist News Network, the Clinton News Network, CNN had a panel, and there was a guy there who apparently thinks that Biden should actually embrace this particular scenario. Like, wait, what? Yeah. Check this out.
I'm of the mindset that if you say it, you might as well just embrace it. And I do think that that's a problem for Democrats.
We're going to ask our strategist over here in a second.
Shocking, that I would say that. No, but realistically, I do think if he said, listen, yeah, I do mean all those racist supporters of Donald Trump. Yeah, I do think that they're terrible. I think that people would look at the Democratic Party a little bit different. I think, look, I do think that the Democratic Party in general doesn't look like they are strong enough, and they will always back off of things. And I think that when Joe Biden backs off of saying what he really believes, I don't think that's a good look.
Well, but
Oh, yeah. So if he backs off of saying what he really believes, yeah. Well, he's already said what he really believes. He's said multiple times what he really believes. And so have the Democrats. They have been telling us all this time. They have been telling us all this time. See, Dan Bongino has pointed out that the Democrats, and this is so true. This is completely true. And I'm telling you, this is like, he nailed it right here, which is exactly this, that conservatives believe that Democrats are people with bad ideas, whereas leftists, he calls them liberals, but leftists believe that conservatives are bad people with ideas. And that literally is the difference. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit, I call every Democrat that I ever run across, every leftist lunatic moron, a moron, because that's what they are. There is no question in anyone's mind that anybody who is voting for the Democrats after seeing the shit that they put us through for the last 3.5 years, actually, for the last 12 of the last 16 years, okay, that they are nothing but morons because they just drink down the Kool-Aid and frickin' follow along like little sheep. Oh, little sheep, little sheep. Come on, come on. They follow it along. And I just can't imagine how these people can even justify half the stuff that they say. They talk about protecting women, yet they let people into sports, men in particular, into women's sports. And they let them crush the women. Crush them. Putting their lives at stake. You're talking about safety here, people. They let in immigrants who have killed, raped, maimed, terrorized, caused all kinds of anguish and angst for women in particular. 6 of them that we know of that have been killed by an illegal immigrant. Sorry, illegal alien. Yeah. Yeah, they're really for the safety and protection of women. Sorry, I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. So, anyway, to kind of go back to the first use of the word garbage with regards to Puerto Rico, they keep talking, the left, of course, kept talking about the whole fact that, oh yeah, that, he was a Trump surrogate, Trump whatever. Okay, well, if he was a Trump surrogate and represented the Trump MAGA movement across it all, okay, then what, pray tell, is this guy? Here from RVM News. Liberal comedian implies Mexicans are thieves at a Tim Walz rally. Yeah, that's right. George Lopez. Comedian George Lopez took jokes addressing former President Donald Trump's border wall and had a series of comments referencing exactly Mexican stereotypes. Yep. Lopez, who is, a far leftist and a moron, used his set to make several pointed remarks and voice his support with Kamala Harris, referring to her as the real deal. Yeah, no. But anyway, he pointed out, he says, Donald Trump said he was going to build a wall, and you better build it in one day because you leave that material out there overnight. And he kind of left it hanging. Oh, yeah. But yeah, Trump. And his, comedian, who probably was like a recommendation from maybe one of his staffers or something like that. Trump even admitted on Sean Hannity, he's like, I don't even know the guy. So, yeah, I mean, really, seriously, you're going to sit here and tell us that this comedian who showed up and spoke about Puerto Rico being an island of garbage, which, by the way, has basis in fact, because as I've pointed out the last two shows, Puerto Rico does have a garbage problem. They have it both washing up on their shores as well as now apparently some of their landfills are getting filled up. And they are getting to the point where they may not be able to take garbage anymore. But hey, that's just reported stuff. I mean, it's, But anyway, apparently you can be disparaging towards minority groups and do stereotypical jokes at a DNC rally or a Kamala Harris rally or a Tim Walz rally, and everything's okay. And everything's fine. Yeah. They are completely, and I'm telling you this for the truth, Democrats are completely hypocritical. They are not only hypocritical, they don't care about their hypocritical attitudes or whatever. Okay? They don't care. Well, the whole Puerto Rico thing, apparently, a lot of people, a lot of the leftists, especially on the socials, they were all like running around going, oh my God, Trump. Oh, he just sunk his campaign. Puerto Ricans are going to be, and then of course, Jennifer Lopez came out and then Ricky Martin and, leftist lunatics from Hollywood. Again, morons. They all came out and were like, I'm Puerto Rican and I'm not going to vote for Trump. Well, you weren't going to vote for Trump anyway, so don't sit there and tell me that changed your mind. Give me a break. But there have been Puerto Ricans that have been coming out. Puerto Ricans in the NFL and even Puerto Rican mayors. Here in Blaze Media. Puerto Rican mayor defends Trump after roast comedian's joke at Madison Square Garden rally. So, Armin Mizani, who's a mayor of Keller, Texas, explained on X why the joke made by roast comedian Tony Hinchcliffe about Puerto Rico's trash problems will not sway him and many other Latinos from voting for former President Donald Trump. So the joke resulted in some intense backlash for Hinchcliffe and Trump. But here's what the mayor said. As one of the few mayors in this country who was actually Puerto Rican, born and raised, let's get real for a moment. And let me offer you an explanation as to why Trump and Vance are surging in the polls amongst Latinos and why they'll continue to do so through Election Day. He apparently lived on the island until he was 9 years old and then came here. And this is what he says, explaining why. For Latinos, faith, family, and economic opportunity motivates us. Not some bad joke by a comedian. America has had a first-hand account of the two choices before us. Under the Biden-Harris administration, Americans have seen record inflation, an open southern border, increased crime, the weakening of the family structure, and taking away of God from our daily lives. Under Trump, Americans saw secured borders, economic prosperity, respect for people of faith, a respect for American values. This is why I, along with millions of Latinos, will help re-elect President Trump back into the White House. Florida Senator Marco Rubio said the same kind of thing, that a joke by an insult comment may not appeal to everyone, but the real issue is what happened under the Biden-Harris administration. He said, and this is at a rally too, by the way, what isn't a joke is how Kamala Harris destroyed our economy and allowed dangerous criminals to illegally enter our country and terrorize, rape, and murder Americans. And what isn't a joke and truly outrageous is how journalists are keeping Kamala Harris with her dangerous campaign of hate by calling Trump the new Hitler, and how MSNBC used old footage of Nazi rallies to smear Trump supporters as Nazis. Yep. CNN reported that Harris's support among Latinos in Nevada and Arizona is small when compared to Joe Biden's support from that voting bloc in 2020. Yeah. So I don't think that joke realistically made a difference. It might for some, but let's be honest, those that it makes a point of irritating or whatever, they were probably never going to vote Trump anyway. Honestly, don't think this is going to be that big of a deal. It really isn't. And I think that the left sycophantic morons are all trying to make it more of a deal than what it actually is. All right. Well, before I move on to my next topic, let me go ahead and tell you about this fantastic company. I wear their shirts for most of my shows here. You can see this right here. I've got it right kind of showing you the top. This is an American themed We the People shirt. They've got a bunch of We the People stuff, but this is an American themed one. It's got an eagle. It's got looks like F-18s on the or maybe F-16 silhouettes on. I can't remember. I'm not as well versed in the no, it's not 16s. These are 18s. So F-18s on the shirt. It's a great shirt. Comes from theflagshirt.com. That's right, theflagshirt.com. And right now they have their Veterans Day sale running on right now. If you go over there, you can get 10% off the entire site wide by putting in Veteran 10. That's VETERAN 10, Veteran 10 in the promo code at checkout, or promo code box at checkout, in order to get 10% off your order. Also, like they always do, if you order $75 or more of their product, they will give you free shipping. So head on over to theflagshirt.com. Check out all of their styles. They've got men's, women's, children's, accessories. Get yourself geared up for Veterans Day or any other American celebration day. And you can go ahead and do that by heading over to theflagshirt.com. And once again, keep in mind, they have a 10% off sale right now. Veterans 10. That's VETERANS, Veterans 10, 10. Or sorry, Veteran 10, no S, Veteran 10. Enter that in the promo code box at checkout, and you'll get 10% off your order. Head on over to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. Mark is asking, since we're talking about Veterans Day, will you have a live show or free show? Well, all of my shows are free. Will you have a free show on Veterans Day? Yes, I will have a show on Veterans Day. I try to always have a show on Veterans Day. All right. So the shenanigans, of course, started. And what ended up happening here recently, down in the lower southwest corner of Washington, the northwest corner of Oregon, was that there were 3 fires in one night that were down there. and somebody went and like put an incendiary device in the ballot boxes. Well, that's caused a lot of people to question the security of those ballot boxes. And realistically, it's because of the fact that, well, some ballot boxes don't have cameras on them. And even if they do, that's just a reactionary. I mean, you're just going to see what's there, and then the police may be able to react, but who knows if they do. And so, again, we talk about the security of mail-in ballots, the security of ballot boxes. And, you know, all of this would be taken care of, honestly, the security of all of this stuff would be taken care of if we went to all sorry, I got distracted by the chat. Basically all in-person voting with voter ID. It would be a much closer, much easier way to secure all of our ballots. But of course, they don't care. Not to mention the fact, too, that not only was there fire in these boxes, but apparently out in Nevada, they're having problems printing ballots as well. And also another thing that happened, too, which I'm going to tell you about here in just a few minutes, has to deal with Colorado and the voting machines. But before I get that, let me just tell you a little bit about what happened with those ballot boxes that got burned. Now, of course, the minute that the story broke, the left just jumped on it and were like, those MAGA Republicans, they're afraid of losing. Yeah, we're really afraid of losing, folks. Nope. Here it is. Daily Caller. Pro-Palestine or Palestine messages reportedly found on devices at ballot box fires. Who is the party of pro-Palestinians? Oh, Democrats. Ooh. So I guess it wasn't MAGA Republicans. I told you, MAGA Republicans do not do that crap. Okay. Devices. This is again from the Daily Caller. Devices recovered at 2 ballot box fires in the Pacific Northwest reportedly both contained pro-Palestinian messaging, according to the New York Times. The words "Free Gaza" were emblazoned on the devices that presumably caused the fires in Portland, Oregon, and Vancouver, Washington. An anonymous source within the Portland Police Department told the New York Times. The Portland Police Department confirmed that the incidences are connected, but have yet to determine the motive. Really? It was an attack on a ballot box. It had an incendiary device and a message called "Free Gaza" on it. What the hell do you think it is? What do you think the motivation might be? I swear, our police officers are like, Anyway, Mike Benner, spokesman for the Portland Police Bureau, said on Monday, according to the New York Times, there was enough evidence collected at all 3 scenes that lead us to believe that all 3 scenes are connected, and we cannot get into more detail. So there was a third device that apparently did not explode at another box in Vancouver. All 3 devices were sent to the Terrorist Explosive Device Analytical Center in Huntsville, Alabama. Another Portland Police Department source told the New York Times. Yeah. So, sure. Yeah, I don't think MAGA would light up a box. We're too American. We value voting. We just want our votes to be secure. We just want to know that our votes are being respected, and that that non-citizens are not not the ones voting, and so on and so forth. Well, here again, this in the populist. It's not just in Democrat areas, apparently, but here in the populist, Florida election worker fired after completed ballots found by the roadside. And Trump, of course, leads a lot. A lot by a wide margin in California. So, yeah. Florida's Miami-Dade, again, this is being the populist. Florida's Miami-Dade County Elections Department has fired an election worker after containers of completed ballots were found abandoned on the highway. Former President Donald Trump leads by far in Florida and could win by as much as 9 points per the polls, something not seen in 36 years. The election board claimed that the election worker forgot to lock the van, and as they drove off, one sealed bin and one sealed bag fell out containing already voted ballots from early voting. The misplaced ballot containers were discovered by a motorist at Turnpike Extension in Cutler Bay and handed over to the police. A video posted by Only in Dade X account shows the bin and the sealed bag lying in the middle of the highway, and the motorist leaving the car to collect them. Okay. So, not saying that this was intentional, but this kind of stuff does happen. And so how are you going to sit here and say that this is like a secure methodology, a secure way of doing these things? It's better. We could do so much better. We could do so much better. Not to mention the fact, as Mark points out, Mark Lanham over on Facebook points out that those ballots are now contaminated. It'd be no different. Think of a ballot. Okay, let's just do this. Think of a ballot as though it is evidence in a murder trial. If that evidence breaks the chain of evidence anywhere, okay, anywhere, what ends up happening is that evidence now becomes tainted and suspect and can be thrown out. If something happens to that evidence or something nefarious was to occur during the time that that evidence was unaccounted for, well, yeah. Anyway, the point being is that I don't know if this was necessarily a nefarious thing, but the fact of the matter is that we need to clean up our elections process. This is a whole bunch of bunk. It's a whole bunch of bunk. First of all, before I move on to my next story, which I'm really whipping through these stories, holy crap. But anyway, before I jump on to the next story, I want to give a shout out to apparently a new visitor to the Rumble chat. Not Karen's Boss. Welcome to the program and welcome to the chat. Looks like you've already been welcomed by my wonderful Whiskey Warrior P1s over here. Oh, also too, Jarhead13 over on Rumble points out, here in PA, there have been at least 4 separate instances in different counties of illegal registrations and ballots being submitted. Yeah. The illegal registrations, I think, if I recall correctly, counted up to more than 2,500, I think. So, yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, you guys recall that a lot of the states that are out there, they were all trying to clean up their voter rolls. And the Department of Justice, the Harris-Biden Department of Justice, they decided that they were going to keep these things. They were going to just try to keep the non-citizen voters on the ballot, even though the this is so absurd. I can't even imagine it. Even though Virginia has verified that these people are to be non-citizens, that they themselves said they're non-citizens and that they shouldn't be on the ballots or they shouldn't be registered to vote. And the Biden DOJ found a friendly judge who basically said, yeah, guess what? You're not going to remove them. And of course, Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, governor of Virginia, said, we're going to take this to the Supreme Court. And they filed an emergency injunction to essentially compel the fact that, hey, these non-citizens, and again, keep in mind, the non-citizens were verified, validated by their own admission, not to mention they were confirmed as being non-citizens by the federal government. Now, for those of you that don't seem to understand this, in our federal election system, non-citizens cannot vote in federal elections. There are a few states that do allow them to, that do allow non-citizens to vote in local elections and in some state elections. But the fact of the matter is that we're talking federal elections. And so federal elections are only for U.S. citizens. Period. There is no other choice. So why this judge just decides, for whatever reason, that, oh yeah, well, if they're admitted non-citizens and you've verified that they're non-citizens, they even tell you that they're non-citizens, yeah, it's too close to the elections. You got to keep them on the voter rolls. What? What kind of logic does that make? It doesn't make any kind of logic. It's not reasonable either. Makes no logic, no reason, no nothing. Well, guess what? The Virginia governor, like I said, hey, we're sending in an emergency injunction up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court took it. And they basically said, hey, Virginia, get rid of those voters. The Supreme Court sides with Virginia governor and affirms the removal of non-citizens from the voter rolls. This from the Populous Times. The Supreme Court of the United States affirmed on Wednesday that, for those of you that are keeping track, that's right here, okay, today. The federal law grants Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin the power to remove non-citizens from his state's voters' rolls. On Wednesday morning, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 to issue a stay. Gee, I wonder how that broke down. Anybody really, has anybody really figured out when they say 6-3 how the breakdown is? I mean, there's no surprise here. Let's face it. Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor. Those are the three, guaranteed. Anyway, moving on. They issued a stay on the lower court rulings. The non-citizens' names can be left off of the voter rolls, and more can be removed through the same process. Yeah, you guys, I mean, seriously, come on. Come on. The news, of course, is a massive win for Republicans and Donald Trump, as well as a win for election integrity. Now, here's the thing. Okay. You know, I honestly believe that their actions, meaning the Supreme Court's actions, when they go and take an action like this and issue what is essentially a clear and reasonable decision, all right, that kind of sets things up for potentially more. Because remember, too, there's another state, and I can't remember if it was Nevada. I think it was Nevada or possibly Arizona, where something was confirmed or overturned or somewhere along those lines in terms of voter integrity with regards to non-citizens voting. And so here, what you have is you have a potential of a possibility that if another case gets up to the Supreme Court, okay, that has to deal with non-citizens voting in federal elections, that the Supreme Court may, depending upon the case, may decide to side on the right of the, or on the side of the Constitution. Yeah. So, you know, I like it when I see this kind of stuff coming out of the Supreme Court, because it basically tells you that, hey, they see an obvious problem here. Yeah. So, there you go. Well, speaking of obvious problems, I mean, other than the fact that, you know, Colorado is what Colorado is, and it's run by Democrats, Democrat morons, I'm telling you. Now, let's face it, this might have been an honest mistake, okay? Could have been, possibly. Well, there's a reason why us in the IT world, and yes, I do include myself because my normal job is in information technology, has been for over 30 years. But information technology, there's a reason why we tell you not to write down the passwords. Why we tell you to keep passwords in a safe place. Why we tell you to not hide them in obvious locations. Okay? There's a reason for it. Here is an example of a reason why. Gee, I wonder. Colorado Secretary of State cite, this is a website now, improperly displayed partial passwords for their voting systems. Now, of course, the state office says the leak does not pose a threat, but the GOP calls for assurances. Let me tell you, yes, it does. It calls for, it does pose a threat. Okay, for those of you who may not be as technically savvy as myself, there is a style of password cracking known as a brute force attack. Now, what this brute force attack does is it basically does combinations of letters, numbers, and symbols throughout what is essentially a dictionary list, and it will substitute letters, numbers, and symbols in random order in some cases, and in other cases, it will actually walk through and do things like common names and, you know, phrases like password 123, for an example. Okay. And it goes through and makes these guesses on these passwords. Okay. And so the passwords, ideally, if you have like an 8 to 13 letter password, that's generally pretty difficult, even for a password cracker, to actually get in if it is something that isn't normally a human, like a human readable word. Well, if you, the chances of that happening, by the way, the success rate depends a lot on the length of the password, whether or not the password can use things like special characters, you know, uppercase, lowercase, numerals, things like that. The more variation that you can put into the password, the harder it is to crack. Well, the challenge here on all of this is the fact that even though this is partial passwords, they've already done half the work for any hacker worth his or her salt to get into these passwords. Because it displayed only partial passwords, you've taken out some of the variability in the passwords. Okay? Now, so the Colorado Secretary of State's office mistakenly posted this spreadsheet to a website with a, quote, hidden tab that included voting system passwords on Wednesday. Now, the Colorado Department of State issued a statement and acknowledged that it was aware of the situation. Here's the problem. It was actually up there for a couple of months already. Now, they obviously have been saying that the partial password leak does not pose an immediate threat to Colorado elections, nor does it impact how many ballots are counted. Okay. Yeah. So the state office said that the Colorado elections include many layers of security and include 2 unique passwords for every election equipment component, which are kept in separate places and held by different parties. Anyway, the state office added that the passwords could only be used with a physical in-person access to a voting system. So under Colorado law, the voting equipment must be stored in secure rooms that require a secure ID badge to access. That access, or that ID badge, creates an access log that tracks who enters a secured area and when. Okay, well, what if it's somebody, for an example, what if it's somebody that has legal access, but has been compromised? I mean, we've never seen that before, right? We've never seen a mole. We've never, a mole meaning somebody who's been planted into the, I mean, I seem to recall the FBI just being announced as having 2 moles inside of the Trump campaign the minute that he announced. Really? Anyway, this is just a disaster waiting to happen. I'm telling you. So anyway, clerks are required to maintain restricted access in secure ballot areas and may only share access information with background checked individuals. Oh, whoa, hold up. Wait. They're sharing access? Really? That doesn't seem secure. I thought you just said just a minute ago that they each had their own access and it was all tracked. Anyway. No person shall be present in a secured area unless they are authorized to do so or are supervised by an authorized and background checked employee, the office explained. Yeah, okay. So apparently also too, just to kind of mitigate whether or not this is that bad of a thing, every Colorado voter votes on a paper ballot, which is then audited during the risk limiting audit to verify the ballots were counted according to voter intent, the state office said. Okay, well, that's still, it's still concerning that this even occurred. I mean, let's be honest, this kind of situation is not something that inspires trust in our elections' integrity at all. Well, one of the things that Kamala Harris, and this story actually isn't in the show description, which, by the way, if you ever want to see any of the links, generally speaking, the majority of the links in the stories that I use, they are in the description of the video on all of my outlets. So you can just go to the description and you can look through the description and you'll be able to see the link as to where I got the story. And I also try to make sure I never put in any links that usually land behind a paywall. So you can always find the links just like I do. They're publicly available. All right. Now, excuse me, let me take a drink of my Knob Creek. Yep. So we've already started with the whole thing of, if Kamala Harris were to ever do a serious interview, okay? If Kamala Harris were to ever do a serious interview with an interviewer who would be willing to step out of the scripted comfort zone, I wonder if there would be a question that could be tossed out. For an example, VP, Miss VP, Mrs. VP, whatever you want to call her, Democrat moron, whatever you want to call her. Will you certify the election should it be determined that you lose? That would be a fantastic question to ask her. And find out, of course, what the answer actually is. Well, one of the things that Kamala Harris has been harping on for a lot, which is essentially that Donald Trump lacks energy. His age, he's becoming senile. He's exhausted. Yeah. Well, somebody caught a photo here in the Daily Fetched. Somebody caught a photo of Kamala Harris, who is staring out into space in a newly released video. Here's the video. Let me go ahead and play it for you. You can take a close look at it. She's obviously on a plane. There she is yawning, for those of you on the audio portion of the program. Oh, now she looks sleepy. She's got her eyes closed. She's kind of just sitting there. She was staring off into space when she first started, and then she yawned. Yeah, I don't even know what time this happened, but boy, she looks really tired. She looks exhausted. Maybe she needs to take a day off. Oh, wait a minute. She already did that last week. Twice. Because she had to prepare for an interview. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she's exhausted. Uh-huh. Yeah, Palm said that actually looks like a train. Well, I could hear, I don't know if you could hear it, but I could actually hear the engines, like a prop plane is probably where it came from. But anyway, in the background. So, yeah. Yep. So she staring into space, appears totally exhausted. Yeah. She's exhausted. Mm-hmm. Anyway. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we've got all kinds of shenanigans going on. In fact, there are some powerful groups hiding facts about illegal voting of non-citizens in the elections. Gee, I wonder why they're trying to keep the non-citizens from, in the elections. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we're what? 7 days, 6 days, 6 days, 6 days out from the election. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, let's see. Oh, there was one other article that I kind of held back, but it's a question with regards to the Epic Times. And it essentially is asking why, or basically saying why many young men are backing Trump. And there's some question. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that really was surprised about this. Young men backing Trump. I mean, let's face it. They've been demonizing young men. They've been demonizing men in general for all of their campaign. And so, yeah, but there has been a significant shift in the young men. Now, this is potentially why, by the way, Joe Rogan made his 3-hour appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience. Now, this is in the piece here. It talks about it's a popular podcast with younger Americans, especially men, and that according to data from Media Monitors, 71% of Rogan's audience is actually male with the average age of 24. So yeah, in past cycles, the piece claims, Republican presidential nominees haven't spent much time courting the youth. Voters aged 30 and over are usually the historical far more favorable to the GOP than their younger counterparts, who have skewed more liberal. Now, here's the thing. Stephen Stiles and I were talking about this the other day. In particular, the group that is, say, 18 to 24, or 18 to maybe even 30. In the beginning, first of all, science has proven that the frontal lobes and yes, I am going to use S on this, but the frontal lobes do not fully develop until the average age of 25. And what they believe are the logic and reason centers of the brain exist in the frontal lobes. So if logic and reason don't develop fully until age 25, which, by the way, some don't even have them develop. It doesn't finish developing, but we'll leave that alone. Those are those guys that are sitting in mama and daddy's basement playing their video games, eating Cheetos, and voting for Kamala Harris because they're part of the White Men for Harris group. But I digress. The younger crowd generally doesn't develop the rest of their brain until the age of 25. And so it stands to reason that younger people tend to vote more with their emotions than they do with logic and reason. And this is why younger voters, at least in my estimation, and some other estimations as well, I'm not the only one, there's been some studies on this, but this is the reason why younger voters tend to vote Democrat. Okay? Now, all of that being the case, okay, that isn't happening this time around. So in 2020, for instance, President Joe Biden vastly outperformed Trump in support among young voters. According to the national exit polling by CNN, Biden received 60% support among those in the 18 to 29-year-old range, and 52% support among 30 to 44-year-old voters. But those top-line numbers hide a more polarized environment among young voters. Young women are much more Democrat in their voting patterns, while young men have been historically split about 50-50 between Republicans and Democrats. This election, though, Trump may be on track to significantly improve his support among younger voters, particularly those aged 18 to 44. That's a trend driven by men moving to the Republican Party under Trump. So a chief of polling firm Rasmussen, Mark Mitchell, told the Epoch Times, what you can see over 3 cycles from 2016 to 2024 is a general rightward shift in younger voters. About 24 young men who spoke to the Epoch Times across the United States cited economics as their biggest issue in this election, mentioning housing, tax rates, inflation as their most pressing concerns. Several indicated that they were drawn to Trump's masculine persona. You remember that image of him standing up with his fist raised, going, fight, fight, fight? Yeah. A persona that often has the opposite effect on young women. Others say they've been left behind by Democrats, suggesting that the party focuses too much on issues such as abortion that affect men less, while others feel villainized by left-wing ideology. Yeah, you think? You think? So Mitchell said that Rasmussen's current polling has Trump leading Harris 47 to 46 among those 18 to 39-year-old men. Women in the same bracket, however, same age bracket, prefer Harris 48 to 44. A New York Times Siena national poll concluded on October 23rd also found modest gains for Republicans among youth and men. The pollsters have substantially overestimated Democratic support in the past. Their most recent poll found that Democrats have lost about 4 points of support among men of all ages when compared to 2020, while Trump has gained about 2 points. So basically what this is telling you folks, literally, is that Trump is putting together a coalition, much like, and I hate to say this, but much like the coalitions that Obama had. They're not your typical Republican coalitions. They are starting to be separate from historical coalitions. Just like the Democrats in under Obama, at least for his first election for sure, the coalitions weren't exactly the typical coalition. And so this could be an indication and a definite effect on this year's election cycle. So, yeah. But anyway, Charles Bullock, a political science professor at the University of Georgia, said that the dwindling support among young men is a legitimate concern for the Democrat Party this year. It's a big problem for them potentially, he said. They've counted on getting the very young voters. They don't? That's a problem. Well, it also doesn't help, too, that you're sitting there saying that men can't be men, meaning that, you know, toxic masculinity, for an example. Okay? Yeah. Economic anxiety, which, again, I really don't understand. Democrats are still trying to run on this idea that abortion is like the top issue. Okay? That the top issue. But economics, inflation, not being able to afford rent, not being able to buy everyday items for you to live. And not only that, but you also have the immigration crisis. Those are the two top, what they call kitchen table issues in today's election. Yeah. I just don't seem to understand why Democrats are so wrapped up in the fact that young, mostly and predominantly liberal white women are going to be their savior. It's just not happening. Anyway. So I see a lot of people in the chat. They're all talking about when they started voting. I actually I didn't graduate until after Reagan had left office. So realistically, I couldn't vote. But I did vote for Ross Perot. I did vote for him. I think he was probably my first vote, if I recall correctly. But by then I was in the military, so it was a little bit difficult to vote and that kind of stuff. So whatever. Anyway, but I have completely, and I still can't figure this out because most of my old high school friends, the people that I was in school with, most of them were Democrats, and as far as I know, still are, because I don't really keep in touch with many of them, only like one or two. But the one or two that I do, they have said that they've gradually shifted their philosophies from the more progressive liberal way of thinking over to the liberal, from the liberal progressive way of thinking over to a conservative way of thinking. That being said, I've been conservative my entire life, and I can't figure out why. I really can't. Oh, just everything. Anyway. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get on with tonight's pet of the week. All right. So for tonight's pet of the week, now this one was a struggle. And by a struggle, I mean a struggle to get a video or pictures. Because unfortunately, what ended up happening was the individual that was sending me this stuff, and I'll tell you who it is in just a minute, but the individual who was sending me this stuff was sending me links from other sources. And that individual, whoever sent the first, or whoever had the first link, took it down. They took it down. So, from Coco Deminky, who lives in Wyoming, sent in this letter originally. Hi, Whiskey. Over the weekend, we had a visitor come down from the mountains and roam around the town in Cheyenne, Wyoming. This young bull moose caused a bit of a stir and some great excitement. And a little boy even named him Twinkle. Now, that's not the video that you're about ready to see. Okay. But anyway, he was captured and brought back to the mountains later that day. Now, this is not the first time we have had a moose come into town. I recall another time about 10 years ago, which is the video that you're going to see. We had a moose come visit our Capitol building. We also have the occasional mountain lion find its way into town on occasion. All animals are safely captured and returned to the snowy mountain range. I did not have the pleasure of actually seeing the moose. The picture and the video were found on Facebook, okay, and that's the video that got taken down, okay. It appears that the original poster took that video down, she said. So she sent the video of the moose at the Capitol from 10 years ago. Also, the reason the moose and other animals are showing up is because of the wildfires in western and central Wyoming. There was another mountain lion sighting over the weekend, and reports of bears making their way into where I lost it, into communities. There we go. It's sad that these animals are being pushed out of their homes and getting lost. And of course she says, thanks, Whiskey. So with no further ado, we are going to watch a short video of a moose. Yeah, it's about 30 seconds long, of a moose in very populated Cheyenne, Wyoming, at the Capitol building. Here it is.
I ain't going any closer. I can tell you that much. He's probably like, what the hell is going on? I wonder when he came in. I don't know. I didn't see him this morning, but it was dark when we came in, so.
Gonna lay back down.
Okay, we can't see him now.
I thought it was a joke, so I didn't.
Oh no, he's going back down. Apparently he doesn't.
All right. So just so you understand, okay, first of all, moose, they're not friendly. Kind of like the bison in Yellowstone. You know how all of the you hear about stories like this all the time of where people go and they get gored because they got too close and stuff like that. Same thing happens with bears and everything else. People seem to think these animals are like cute, cuddly, you know, pets that you can go up and pet them and stuff like. They're not. Your best bet, honestly, is to stay well away and make sure that you don't get close to them at all. And I can tell you that from experience that, yeah, they can do damage to cars and things like that too. And we over here on the western half of the mountains in Washington will get sometimes get reports of mountain lions and sometimes get reports of elk and also bears getting into populated areas. And of course, I mean, it happens when the populated areas start expanding into what would normally be their domain and range. But anyway, so the moose was attempted to be sent in about a month ago, and it took that long for us to get everything all of. By the way, did you guys see a squirrel in there at all? You know, with maybe like a little hat, flying hat, World War II type flying hat and glasses? I didn't. Anyway. For those of you that were that may be watching the program, that was a Bullwinkle and Rocky reference. All right. Well, that's it for me, folks. Oh, by the way, if you want to send in your pet, I have one more for next week. And then the queue is dry, so it's primed and ready for anyone to send in their photos. Send it in to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online, and you can get your pet featured on Pet of the Week. Like I said, I have one for next week, and one for, and then after that, I've got nothing. So, go ahead, get them sent in, send them in. This is a fan favorite segment. When I don't get anything, I can't, I can't get them. I can't play them. Anyway, hey, Rocky. Sorry, that was my Bullwinkle impression. My bad. All right, moving on. Also, too, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It's free. And once you do, make sure that you're signed in and go to search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to make sure that you are notified every time I go live. Also, too, we will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.